Are there any other comments? If not, Michelle? Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Next, we have the body cameras and squad car cameras for $600,000. This is to upgrade the current body cameras for all deputies. This would include the jail staff as well, and then add the squad car cameras, and then integrate these systems with our new records management system. Are there any questions on this particular project?
Supervisor Brennan.
How often are we going to have to replace these units, and are we building that into our recurring budget at all?
The system we're looking at, this is going to be a 5-year with new equipment year number 4. So this will get us through the 5 years. That's all maintenance, software upgrades. So that should get us. This should get us 5. Again, new technology comes in. As of right now, we don't have any squad car cameras. This adds to our squad. This adds to our bodies.
And then this also eliminates what you're doing currently, right? This is what we've been talking about for a couple of years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The current system is just an app on a phone. This
Yep.
is actually a dedicated
Yep.
body camera system. So, like this weekend when we were on our phones a lot, body cameras weren't working. They can click off, and the batteries on these, when you're using phone and body cam, these batteries were struggling this weekend. So,
Supervisor Hanson.
Sheriff, you're going to have to replace all the units at one time in 5 years, is that right? What I heard you say?
conceivably, yes. Well, we're getting new ones in 4 years, so new equipment, but it's still within our 5-year program.
Would it concerns me, and I don't mean to be argumentative, but it concerns me that that's a big expense that'll happen, boom, 5 years later, boom. It's like having a flat spot on a wheel. Could you phase this in, maybe buy a quarter of them every 4 years and put it at your highest priority at first, and then buy another quarter of them, and buy another quarter, and buy another quarter, and phase in, and then make a routine maintenance of it, so that you're not hitting the county with a $600,000 purchase, and then the next time I'm sure it'll be a higher price.
Yeah, I think the way I would answer that is probably logistically it'd be tough for the sheriff to do that. So one of the things that we try to do when we look at the 5-year plan is we're melding projects from everyone else. So we stagger different projects at different times and we swap them out so that the KIP is a round wheel. Whereas this project individually, if it was just this project, you're right, it would be a flat spot every 5. But because we incorporate, it's just one piece of the bigger KIP, it flows and rolls. And that dollar amount remains fairly constant for us. If you can see, the fund balance applied we have is between $2 million and $4 million each year. I'm looking at that row right here. So that's where that, how we try to stabilize the KIP. And I think Supervisor Burning had kind of mentioned it before, won't you build that in? We really can't. There's things that we buy every year, like squad cars. We buy, 9 squad cars every year. It'd be great to add that to our operating budget and not have to put it into the KIP where we're relying on fund balance to pay for some of these. But the structure of county funding is such that we have hard revenue limit capacity to do that. I would love to put it in there. They're just too big a dollar amounts to roll them in. So we've come up with a system that's working pretty well for St. Croix County. We take our excess fund balance, we roll it into the KIP, and we've been able to continue to pay for all of these projects by having good budgets every year and strong sales tax growth. So that system is working for us. I know a lot of other counties don't have this luxury, but the process works for us as long as we continue on that path and we stay within that spectrum of that 2 to 4 million per year of fund balance applied.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Supervisor Burning.
On top of what Supervisor Hanson was saying, is it possible to phase these out or to, I guess, reinstitute new technology instead of doing it all in one shot? Can you stretch some of these out over time and maybe do it over a 2-year period once the initial equipment? I mean, do you think it's possible to stretch it to 5 or 6 and then start rolling it out in groups over time rather than have that big hit? Now, I understand the whole KIP thing. I'm not arguing that from a round wheel, flat, whatever theory thing that we were talking about, but the equipment, it is, yeah, I'm not dissing it, Dan. But to Supervisor Hanson's point, is there a way to stretch that equipment once that initial phase is implemented?
Some of the things that jump into my limited technology scope are, obviously, we're done with these in June of '23, contract runs out. Different systems that we would be using. If we were to even start phasing out, that would be 2 systems that the DA's office would still have to utilize. The system we're looking at.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. Once the system's in place, are you saying we're going to flop out a whole new system in 5 years? Or are you saying the body camera hardware itself needs to be refreshed?
Body camera hardware will be replaced at year 4. Year 5, the contract is done. If we remain with this group, then it's only the new fee, not new equipment. It's much less, and it's just the user fee that we're paying for year 5 and on.
Oh, okay, so it's software, and
Yes.
it's software and licensing that we're going to be paying for.
Yes.
And so hardware is going to be replaced as needed then?
Part of this whole 5-year contract, at year 4, we get all new equipment. So it automatically, I think it's one of the cells for, we replace the hardware at year 4.
Yeah.
Contract is up in 5.
So you might as well renew with us.
Might as well renew with us.
Yeah.
But that's not another 600.
Yep.
It's just the software and the new contract.
So that actually answers my question, and we're good to go. Thank you.
And that was my limited technology spiel.
Supervisor Connor.
Don't we also run into some problems, though, with this kind of technology, that the turnover rate and the speed at which everything keeps changing on this particular type of thing has been pretty dramatic in the past, say, less than a dozen years? And do we see that to continue down the path? So the deal that I'm getting at is, as this technology keeps changing, we're probably going to be stuck doing upgrades to keep up with what's going to be in the most effective thing for the sheriff's department.
Did you have any response, Sheriff?
In that question, what I'm thinking is, again, I can't see 5 years down the road. The system we are looking at has been around for quite some time. It's not a new system, fresh off the market, which similar to what we have here. This app is, we were kind of on the cutting ground of that. The system we're looking at is an established company that's been around a lot of years. It's a system that Hudson, Richmond, Baldwin, I think the majority, if not all the other agencies within St. Croix County have. So it would be consistent with that, which jumps back to my sending things to the district attorney's office, public defender's office. It's one system. So I believe that the one we go to, it will be the one we stay with for some time.
Supervisor Carlson.
I plan to vote yes because it's only $600,000 compared to lawsuits that other places that use cameras have been able to avoid that made $600,000 look small. Plus, it really helps with the courts to have the the evidence of what's going on at DUIs and stuff as evidence in courts. So there's a lot of benefits to it. I actually thought it was going to cost maybe even a little bit more for it.
Well, the top line one that we had originally looked at was more, considerably more. And this one still, we don't have a firm number, but this is even probably, will be better when we get the final bid.
Supervisor Hanson.
No, I think he answered my question. I'm sorry to waste your time.
If there's no more questions, we'll have a show of paddles.
Okay, and the last project for 23 is the bike ped plan. This one, we actually just received the grant notice, and they have denied our grant request on this. So we would actually like to push this project back to 2024. So if you vote on this one, we'll just say we're voting to push this back to 2024 until we reapply for the grant. And if that grant is approved, then we can move forward at that point. But we will not go forward with opinion. You're voting on your opinion. Okay, paddles on this one, or any questions on this?
I'm curious why the grant was declined.
The grant we applied for is a Transportation Alternatives TAP program grant, and we missed out on funding by just 2 positions, and we asked them for some follow-up on why we didn't get the funding, and they said was just competitive, and hopefully next time we would. We thought we would. We thought we had a very competitive application, and this is one of 3 or 4. The first phase is already funded, the project from North Hudson to our new park. The next phase, this one that didn't get funded yet, is from our new park to Willow River State Park. And then the next phase will be from there, at least partway to Willow River, to the Loop Trail, and that part is more expensive. So we will probably break it into 2 more pieces.
Supervisor Shirley.
How much was the grant that we
The
missed?
grant would have been 80%,
Okay.
and we would have paid 20%. So out of that 600,000, 480,000 would have been the grant. Other questions?
So at this time, I guess we're going to the recommendation is to slip this a couple of years, so we're just showing our opinion as to whether it should be slipped a couple of years because we did not get the grant. So any other questions? Show of paddles? Thank you. That takes care of 2023. So we'll move to 2024.
2024, we have $130,000 to replace the Government Center West driveway. This will replace the west driveway and the western portions of the lower parking lot. And if there's questions, I'm going to call upon Jim again.
Supervisor Leaf.
So how does this relate to the other construction that we're doing? And you knew I was going to ask this.
You totally could answer this.
So all these are little pieces, right? We've got a big addition going in. So the budget came in for the addition, and we know where we're at there. And these little pieces are things that have to be done. They're not necessarily related to the south addition. So if we had all these little things sitting out here, and our construction manager says, okay, well, here's where the project's coming in, and then I say, oh, but we need a new driveway, we need to do this, we need to do this, it just takes away from the bottom of the project right away. So these little pieces that we're doing around here are separate items, and I didn't want to tank the bigger project with all these little things that need to be done anyway, so.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we can show our paddles.
And the last project for 24 For $280,000, this is the 911 call center expansion for position 8 and 9. These dollars would include the software and workstations for both workstations, and then this would include all of the equipment to go into furnishing those 2 workstations to expand the 911 center. Do we have any questions?
Supervisor Shirley.
Is that expansion into the existing space, just more consoles, or is it?
I'm treading into 911 too. So, yes, we'll be adding 2 new consoles. But what we're doing is as part of the addition, we're going to bid this work out with that. The funding will be separate, again, just what we talked about with the driveway. It's a separate item. And so by bidding it out with the project, we should get more competitive bids and a much better rate. So that's what this will do. And it's also have it ADA compliant. So there's a little bit of remodeling that we have to do office-wise for that, so.
Any other questions on this item? Seeing none, we can raise our paddles.
I'm going to stop there.
Thank you.
All right, we'll give Leah a break here for a second. I'll go over the 2025 projects for you. So the first project we have, project 10107, $475,000. This is for a solar array at our Baldwin facility at the Ag Center building. So we've been looking at solar arrays both for the government center, the Ag Center building, as a way of reducing our operating costs. Harnessing the power of the sun to offset that operating cost. Anytime we can reduce our operating costs, that really helps the budget. Because as I explained before, the operating has these strict limits, whereas capital, we have a little bit more flexibility. We've put these solar projects further out, and the reason we did was we're really hoping that the solar technology improves and costs come down. So that's why they're not in next year's project. We really want to do them to get our operating costs down, but we're really hopeful that the technology is going to get there, and the cost point on that technology is going to get there, that it'll bring it down. We don't get any tax credits for solar, by the way. So, but solar array for Baldwin. Questions?
Supervisor?
So what are the metrics that we're using to determine the cost benefits and how far out we could possibly even move this if the benefits aren't helpful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Sorry, Jim. Jim's the guy that works with this stuff day in and day out. He is so knowledgeable.
Yeah, thanks. So we had an engineering group a few years ago look at converting Baldwin over to solar. And this project negates all the electric bills for that building. This would put Baldwin at a 0. The other thing is yesterday I was on a call with Green Tier Legacy and Maria Redmond, who's with the Energy for the state of Wisconsin. Solar is getting more and more active, and they're trying to promote it more, so there's more federal money coming. So we kind of put this out to Kent's point of technology is getting better, the products are getting better, and Jerry, you probably know about all this better than any of us in the room. But with the federal coming out with a little bit more for counties and cities, that'll make this even better. And I'm thinking that the 475 is going to be a lot more than what we'll need, because we'll have some grants available here within the next year or two that we can use.
So does that mean that for 365 days that facility is not going to use any electricity on grid?
If this was Florida, I might be able to go with that. But obviously, you still you make electric on snow days. Cloudy days, it still makes power. Okay. But overall, we could always couple a battery system with this, which if we have the 475 and we do get money from the state or the feds, we could use that to battery and hold that power. So then, yes, on those days we could pull off the battery instead of work off the solar. So, yeah, the option is to get it down to 0 is what I wanted to do.
Supervisor Hanson.
All right, so what are we spending for electricity each month, and can you calculate or estimate an ROI for this system?
So Ken's much better with the finance and the budget and the numbers, you know, than I am. You don't have that with you? No. I don't either. So I can get it back to you, but I can tell you that when we engineered it, it was to get it to zero, and this was the dollar amount that we chose, so.
Supervisor Van Sommer.
I think the other thing we have to look forward to, and I was just looking at my email as I was waiting for the meeting to begin, and they're talking about rolling brownouts in St. Croix County and blackouts, and I think this is a step to eliminate that, at least in the Baldwin, building there. Yeah, solar is going to come down in price. It has come down already. It's getting better. And no, in January and February and December, it doesn't produce much. But I think you'll see soon that there'll be a variable rate of electricity in the summertime, because St. Croix Electric and Xcel Energy, who serve all of St. Croix County, are summer peaking utilities now. They used to be, St. Croix Electric used to be a winter peaking, now it's summer. The summer kilowatt hours are going to cost us a whole lot more, maybe double, triple what we're paying for now. The beauty of solar is that's when they produce. And in the wintertime where there's excess, we'll be able to sustain. So I think looking at a whole, I think you're ambitious, Jim, in thinking that it's going to be zero net, but that's a good something to shoot for.
Supervisor Brammer.
Thank you. Where would this be located on the facility?
It'd be on the north side of the building. We
On
have
that-
that large lot there.
In the grass, okay. And I like the idea of the batteries. I hear batteries are coming more and more around. Maybe by then we'll have some storage capacity to fill gaps.
Yeah, and even for the car chargers now, they put the solar-powered car charger in, and they have batteries, because they're always turning. So if the car's not plugged in, the battery's charging, so that carries over and feeds the buildings too. So kind of amazing how it's coming full circle.
Right, yeah. Some of the new vehicles I hear will be able to power your house during outages and things like that. So if we could, I like the battery idea.
Hey, Bill, you on that?
Seeing no more hands in the air, we're prepared to show preference.
All right, does this project have a bright future or not? That project does, all right, thank you.
Supervisor, or Administrator, what you mentioned this in your beginning statement, but could you just remind us again what we are looking at and the opportunities we have in the future to revise this?
So because these projects are in 2025, we are not committing any financial resources today to that, or even this year in the budget. By leaving it, though, in the KIP plan, it says that staff should continue to work. We should continue to get the data that Dan, Supervisor Hanson's talking about, so that you can make those decisions when it gets to the next year, when we say, okay, this is what we're going to spend. Here's all the details on it. Right now, we've gotten kind of a price estimate. Ask an engineer, how much would it take to get us to zero, and this is the number they give us. But by leaving it on the list, we'll continue to work on it over the next 2 years, so that we get you those details for that final vote when it does get funded. All right. The next project on the list, Project 115, it's $3 million for the Hudson Highway Facility Replacement. So we have several satellite offices, shops for our highway department. The Hudson one, because this is where the population growth is in the county, has exceeded capacity. That facility has served us well over the years, but it's time to expand that. We've actually moved this project up from 26 to 25 because we tried to clump some of the larger projects. We have 4 large projects in 2025 here. So if we're going to do a bond issue, it's more economical to combine those bigger projects into 1 year to do the bond issue. So if at least some of these 4 large projects survive into 2025, it's more economical to pull that project into 25 to do the project. But are there any questions on the replacement of the Hudson Highway Facility in 2025?
Supervisor Connor.
Where is that facility located?
It's on Highway 12, just outside of Hudson here. It's in the township of Hudson. I think Tim knows where it's at.
Are there any other further questions on this item? If not, we can show our preference.
All right, we'll keep driving towards that project. I'll be performing all week. All righty. The next project, Project 76. This is $1.6 million in 2025 for Glen Hills. This is 9 camping cabins with infrastructure. So I'll emphasize that it's 9 camper cabins. The 1.6 million is mostly paying for infrastructure. The camper cabins are the smallest portion of that, but in order to extend the roadway and the necessary infrastructure to develop the property for access, that's where the biggest part of the cost is. Camper cabins are very popular out at Glen Hills. We have 2 of them currently. So this is an expansion into that type of experience that we're offering in our parks. Are there any questions on camper cabins in Glen Hills?
Supervisor Van Sermer.
Why the magic number 9?
I think that's what the space allowed for. So it's the most economical. As we looked at the space that we had available for development, putting the infrastructure in, that was the number that fit that. I mean, they could probably put more or put less if you really wanted to, but.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Rember.
How does the fee structure of the camping fees play into the infrastructure itself?
Not at all, really. So if you look at the 1.6 million and how much we're going to recoup on camping fees, the payback period is probably like 100 years. So it's, when we do park developments, it is not a profit motivation that we're looking at. When we do park improvements, it's for the good of the public. So you have to understand that. We're not here to make a profit on this. We're here to provide a resource and provide a recreational opportunity for the people that live or visit St. Croix County. So you just have to do it with that knowledge. The fees are based upon, really, we look at, mostly what we look at is local competition and what the state parks are charging in setting our fees.
Supervisor Counter.
If I remember, Dan, with Ellen, didn't we have something that also showed what the camper cabins did for economic impact for the area and that too? So it's more than just how much you make on the rents of the camper cabins. It also has to do with the economics of driving people into the area and that they're spending money locally in St. Croix County and in the Glen Hills area.
Yeah, I think Supervisor Counter makes an excellent point that while we're maybe not profiting by renting those cabins, it is generating local economic stimulus to the businesses in St. Croix County that these visitors are stopping at.
Supervisor Hanson.
This is the impact is not just the camper cabins, but the camper cabins and the larger campers, the larger campground, bring in a type of tourist which will spend more money in the area. They will go to the other hospitality outlets within the area, and they spend more money. And that's the economic development that we're hoping to, and we will continue to drive in the eastern part of the county. It's good for economic development, and we're happy about doing that for the community. So that's another consideration.
Supervisor Carlson.
What is the impact on free market competitors that would be competitors to this? What do they think about something like this coming in? Because that might affect their business by pulling away people from their campsites to the public ones.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, so we have the state that we compete with, and we have any local private campgrounds. I don't believe there's a lot of local campgrounds in St. Croix County. I don't know the exact number. I know there's not a lot located here, but counties typically do have different camping facilities, and yes, they are in competition with both the state and the privately owned camping facilities that are available in the area.
Supervisor Hanson.
The ones that come to mind are in Star Prairie and in Somerset. So the people that are camping in Glen Hills aren't making the choice to go, because there's different features in Somerset and Star Prairie than there are out in Glen Hills, and they go for different reasons. So I don't believe that the choice that you'd make to go to Star Prairie or Somerset would be the same as going to the other. I don't think that it's offsetting. I think it's different tourist decisions are being made. So I don't think that the county is offsetting or keeping vendor from gaining any business. We're adding to the tourism capacity of the county, not taking away from a private vendor. So it's a good thing.
Supervisor Leaf.
I'd also add that I think, especially during the pandemic, that we had high demand. Parks are in high demand being outside, and Ellen can confirm this, but I don't know that the demand is, might be even more than the supply.
Supervisor Van Sermer.
Has there been much issue with property damage? Now, I realize we only have 2 camping cabins, and is police protection going to be enhanced? Or are we going to have to enhance that because of that? And the reason I mention that is because I'm a camper, and I know that private campgrounds are complaining of that very thing, and I'm wondering how we're coming out.
I'm not familiar with that issue, but I'll have Ellen address that for us.
I don't know if I heard it exactly, Jerry, but
Any damage, vandalism?
we experience just like any other campground or place. We occasionally do have some kind of vandalism problems, but we don't really see that much. Just like the state park, and to address some of the other comments, county parks and state parks are built differently than private campgrounds. They have more open space, they have more spaced out campsites. We're not going for volume, we're not going to make profit, we are doing it differently. We don't have amenities like game rooms and bars and dancing and music and all that kind of swimming pools for the bad days. We have trails and we have nature, and that's what we do. We do trails in nature and boating and fishing and just casual things. So we're looking for a different clientele from someone who's there for a little bit different type of experience. We enforce pretty strictly our quiet hours, that kind of thing, and we don't have a lot. The only places we experience a lot of vandalism at our county facilities are those that don't have staff there, seasonals. I can honestly say we have definitely had vandalism, and we deal with it, and we are always working to find ways to decrease it, but not that much. And just to kind of answer some of the other questions, our camper cabins are very popular. The 2 we did were done as pilot projects, and the second one came online in June, second week of June, and within 5 days, it was booked for the full summer. So the demand is great, and it was, right now, I had my staff tell me right before I came down here, that cabin for what season it'll have is at 90% booked. Any other questions I can answer?
Seeing no more questions, we can, unless Administrator Witt has another point?
No, I tried to think of a joke on this one, I couldn't come up with that, so
Okay.
we'll just vote.
So,
All right, thank you. All right, the next project, Project 98, this is $50,000 for replacement of the Squaw Lake boat landing. You know, the county's infrastructure at some point needs to be replaced and upgraded, and that's really, this project has been on the list for a couple of years. It's up to fiscal year '25, but it's a replacement of that boat landing. Do you have any questions about that project?
seeing no questions, we can vote.
All right, thank you. The next project then is a 22-site RV campground. It's for larger RVs. This would be in Glen Hills Campground. So similar to the camper cabins, this is a development of a piece of the park into a new type of campground, expanded or new uses. So it's taking a piece of ground and putting in the infrastructure to hold these 22 RVs. So it's a type of camping that's popular, just like the camper cabins. So it's an investment into additional resources in Glen Hills to make it a destination. Questions about this one?
Supervisor Adams.
I'm just curious if, with the
Yeah, I know it includes the electric. I don't know if it includes the water, though.
Yes, it is for electric and water, but not sanitary. So just electric and water. It would be for larger RVs. That's one of the that's probably the main complaint we get about our existing campground is that, and even the other areas we've opened up to tent and small pop-up campers, is that the bigger campers that a lot of people have are extremely popular right now. The longer ones, there's very few spots we have that fit. And people have asked us numerous times, and when we did a survey, before we started planning any of these improvements at Glen Hills, we did a survey and recreated a master plan for some improvements, and that was one of the top things that was requested. So.
Okay, and I would agree with that because I've looked to go out there. I have a travel trailer, and that was one of the things that I noticed. And so hopefully the lots can be graded flat to reduce the amount of leveling, obviously. So, yeah, I think this is a good thing.
And this summer, maybe this will help to understand it, but this summer we are building a new group area that you guys authorized, and that is in an area we're opening up, and that area, those group sites will be for both groups and for individuals, and there are only 15 of them, but they have electric and water, and then what we're actually doing is taking the fairly flat existing group area, and we would redevelop it into the larger RV sites. And then just down the road from that would be the camper cabins, and all of that together would share some of the same infrastructure, but each area needs new road, the facilities designed, and et cetera. So.
Are there any other questions? Chairman Long.
It's really kind of an open-ended question for everybody just to think about. With this particular item in adding the camping cabins, so we're basically saying that we're willing to invest $3.4 million in this county park. So my question for you to think about is, what else could we do with $3.4 million that would benefit the citizens of this county? Personally, I can think of a lot of things. It's a lot of money to go into one park, and I think there are a lot of other options and alternatives that somewhere along the way we should consider.
Supervisor Hanson.
It's a big county, and we have traditionally not spent a lot of attention on the eastern three-quarters geographically. The Glen Hills Park is a jewel that had really dulled over the last 50 years of very, very conservative county boards, saying things very much like we could do a lot of other things with that money, and then there were a lot of things that didn't get done. And the thing that comes to my mind as a prime example of kicking the can down the road was the parking lot at the government center. When I was first elected, it had potholes in it that you could park a VW in. Glen Hills has needed to be redone for decades, and what we're seeing now is the result of a very, very, very long period of neglect, and what we're doing is rebuilding it, and we're rebuilding it over the course of a longer period of time. So this vision of adding the camper cabins, adding the larger RVs, we're updating it for what the public demands and maintaining this as a jewel of what St. Croix County has to offer for hospitality, because people come to St. Croix County to enjoy a agrarian environment, because we've maintained a certain style of hospitality in this county for people to come for tourism. Tourism is a large industry in this county, and if we don't provide something, private industry isn't stepping up, there isn't campgrounds in that end of the county. This particular facility is what's available. If we don't put money into the facility and it's not kept up, then people just don't go there. It'll be shoddy looking, and we're not only are not putting our best foot forward, we're putting forward something that represents the entire county very poorly. So this money, it really, again, looking at the long term, is a good investment in tourism in the county, because it brings people here. And they say, well, the western part of this state is beautiful. And so when they do their staycations, they want to stay in Wisconsin, they come to this side of the state. Where will they go? They like to come here. We want them to come here. This county, this particular park is a good destination, a nice alternative. When Willow River State Park gets full, they start to look for the alternative, and we want to be that alternative. So I'd say vote yes on this. We can debate it in another year or two when the time comes.
Supervisor Carlson.
You mentioned that we could use, the opportunity cost. If we spend it on this, we can't use it for that. I would like also to think of, this is the people's money, and if we spend it, that's coming out of their pocket too. So it's not that we have to spend the $3.5 million. We can let the citizens keep it.
Supervisor Telejohn.
To tag on to what Mr. Hanson said, the tourism dollars will come back, and then it's sales tax that the county makes on that also. So we'll be having income coming in from all the tourists to help offset some of the costs. So I think it's a good idea.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we can show our preference.
Thank you. All right, so the next project, Project 125, it's $15 million projected out in fiscal year 2025 for the Eckerd Bluffland County Park development. So like we've talked about with Glen Hills, which is a park that we've had for decades and decades, we're putting money into. I mean, we put it a lot back in the 70s in that park, did a lot of development out there, and we've started to replace a lot of those facilities just recently over the past 5 years. So just like that park on the west side, the Eckerd Bluffland development is a brand new park on the east side of the county. So I think the number was like 70% of the county's population live within 15 miles of this Eckerd Bluffland Park. So it's a great opportunity to develop something that is very close for the majority of the residents, and it would be a jewel on the east side of the county, just like we really hope that Glen Hills is on the west side of the county. So west, east, yeah, something like that. Left and right. So, so you got me off track now. Yeah, I guess. Which way are we going here? But the $15 million, it's a big number, but it's developing that park all at once. So that's a price tag that comes in and does what we've done in Glen Hills over decades and does it all at once to bring in a fully developed park for the county to utilize. And like I said, it's within our population center, so I'm sure we get just a ton of usage if developed. And there's a whole park plan and a lot of supporting documents that we've put into the packet for this. So hopefully you've had a chance to look through that and questions that you have on this project.
Supervisor Leaf.
grants to help fund part of it. Absolutely. I mean, we are always looking for different funding opportunities. Some types of projects are better suited for grants than others. There's probably portions of this project that would be grant eligible, but you wouldn't be looking at a TAP grant like 80% funding for this. I mean, it wouldn't be anything like that. It'd be much smaller amounts.
Seeing no other questions, we can show our paddles.
Just to follow up before I turn it back over to Leah to go over the final 2 years. So on that, that was a 9-6 opinion vote that I got. So we do have several supervisors missing, so which within a margin of error that it could go either way. I mean, it's 50-50 there. So my question to you is, if you didn't like that project, is it the price tag on it? So is it you would consider a smaller project, you would consider it phased in more over the point of time, or really it's just a no all around? I just would like a little bit of additional input so I could maybe plan that out, maybe a different way to do it so it would be more palatable for the county board.
Supervisor Long.
I'm happy to comment on that.
Yeah.
So my real concern is we're borrowing the money. Okay, we just borrowed $80 million for this building expansion. Now, a couple of years later, we're going to borrow another $20 million. $4 million is going to go into Glen Hills, and then $15 million to develop this park. I think the park's a great idea. I would love to see it come to fruition. I'm not against the project whatsoever. But I just think that we should do this project when we think we can afford it. And borrowing all the money really bothers me, and just, you know, my friends and neighbors are already paying a lot in taxes. And I think we just need to be really cognizant of our borrowing, considering what we've done for the building expansion.
So the administrator posed several questions to us as to how we might want to proceed in the future. But just to raise one of his options that he raised, he asked about whether we would support it if it were perhaps phased in over a period of time. Could I just ask for a show of paddles on that concept?
Yeah. Phasing of the project in, would you support that if we brought it back in multiple phases over the next decade? Yeah.
Oh. Supervisor Burning.
No shocker. So I love the idea of having our parks. I supported the initiative to keep this on for 2025. I agree with the sentiment that right now in 2022, we don't know what 2025 looks like, but I want to give everyone my logic as to why I'm supporting keeping it on here so we can keep it within our scope. Because I think it is important as if we're going to spend $4 million on the eastern part of the county, no, you know, and that's no offense to the eastern, central, and eastern part of the county, 70% of the, east, thanks, Ken, for confusing me now. No. I think it's important to note that, in that 70% population center, we don't have anything county-wise that's really super close, that's going to be as robust as this. The traffic could be great. However, I agree with Chairman Long that we have to be cognizant that who knows where we're going to be at in 2 years, especially with the way things are right now. But I want to keep it on here so that we can keep our eye on it, because that is a really nice area that, if developed, would be an awesome place to visit. So,
we've got three hands in the air. We'll start with Supervisor Shirley, then we'll go to Supervisor Hanson, then we'll go to Supervisor Carlson.
All right. With that large of a dollar amount of a project, being in 2025, we're going to have to spend some resources to get that planned and whatnot rather quickly in order to get 2025 moving if we're actually going to spend that kind of money then. So Yeah, I would support a smaller version of that if we maybe slip it to 2027.
Just can respond to that quickly. The plan pretty much exists. The work is, most of the work has been done, planning the park, and public meetings have been done, and I'd invite you to take a look at those plans. They're really very good. They'll be modified, everything will be massaged, and you're welcome to participate in that as the time goes and the process continues. I appreciate what you said, Supervisor Burning. We went through a very long process acquiring this land. We were very, very lucky to have had the opportunity through what was called the mitigation fund of the St. Croix River crossing. When the bridge was first proposed, there was a group of people that were deeply concerned that it would have a severe impact on the environment, and the Minnesota Department of Transportation put up the money to give to us to mitigate the impacts of this bridge. So we, St. Croix County, ended up with a lot of money to go out and buy land to hold that it won't be developed, and I mean developed for housing or anything else. It would be held mostly the way it is. And we did that. There were some priorities. It needed to be on the bank of the St. Croix River or on the watershed of the St. Croix River. If we couldn't get land which is right on the bank of the St. Croix River, we found this property. We got very, very lucky, and we didn't have to spend our taxpayers' money to get it. Part of the agreement was that we would make it available for low-impact use. And so that's what we're going to do. We have an obligation to the people who did put this money up and to the Wisconsin DNR to make this available to the public for low-impact use. That includes developing the land. So we can't just let it sit there empty. It's not really available. I don't know if any of you have tried to walk back in there. It's tough to get into. It should be developed, and it's part of the agreement that we made, taking those funds and making the agreement to make it available to the public for low-impact use. 70% of the county lives within a certain number of miles, very close to this area, and it will be a beautiful park. If you read the park plan, I think you'll be very impressed with what our community came up with together. So it's probably much better to do it all at once than to do it in little bitty pieces, because if you do it, I've seen parks get developed in little bitty pieces. If you do it in little bitty pieces, the part that you build first gets worn out by the time the last phase gets built. And then suddenly you're just doing renovation after renovation, and things never really get done right. So let's kind of plan on bonding for it in a couple of years, 25, and build the thing right for this side of the county.
Supervisor Carlson.
Thank you. What I'd like to see before I would ever approve something like this is just a little bit more on economic impact. Is it a good investment? I don't want to spend people's tax monies on something just so some people can have a good place to go. I want it to be positive for the community. If it brings in more tourism, more money, and then we can generate tax, at least for some of it, generate tax revenue to offset and lower taxes using tourism dollars that we get through sales of tax and stuff. So I don't know how hard it is to figure that out, but that would help make a decision for something like this.
All right, very good.
I'll call on Supervisor Counter in just a second, but just in hearing the discussion, it doesn't seem like we have any real hard no's. That was also one of the questions that the administrator had asked. So I'll call on Supervisor Counter in just a second, but I was then going to just ask if we could have a show of paddles that maybe isn't a green, but isn't also a hard red, that we would just suggest that the administrator continue to look at it with the idea of coming back to us with more information about this, which we have plenty of time to do this in 3 more years, and that we could revisit this. But don't but not to totally drop it. So as soon as I've called on Supervisor Counter, I'll ask for a show on that.
I just had two comments on it. One you were mentioning economic impact, and the ideal thing with the site of Eckert is, number one, it's a St. Croix River property. It'll have access. It's got bicycle trail access from North Hudson going through it, and it also ties in from there over to Willow River State Park. And then the eventual is also to tie in with bicycle trail traffic up to the loop trail up along around the bridge and through downtown Stillwater. So it's a unique property that's kind of centered between all those locations, which I see that as a real positive for the future for the development of the park system for the county. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was, we talked about doing a phase plan with this one. The hard part with this particular park for doing a multiple phase plan is that as you develop this park, if you don't have a lot of the features that are being developed with this park at once, so which this park, part of this, it's a pretty extensive, if you had a chance to look at this, to see what it's all about. But this park includes a lot of camper cabins and a lot of things that are all as part of this for the price tag. And doing a phase plan on this one, the difficult part becomes, let's say at first you're looking at just doing some road infrastructure and some of the things. You're creating an access, but we really won't have the long-term supporting ability that if in the future, if we have the camper cabin income and things, it would help defray a lot of the costs that would be borne onto the county for the maintenance portion of it, for monitoring it and things, because we're already very, very short-staffed at the county for taking care of parks. And so if we are half developing it, it's going to make it a real chore for them to try to figure out how they're going to do a maintenance program on something where we don't really have any income to come back and at least try to help defray some of those costs to make it work for us. So I guess that's the one thing, the one deficit to trying to do this over a termed period.
Maybe I could turn to the administrator, and earlier I had said, and I would offer something, but I don't think the chairman should probably offer the thing. So I was turning to the administrator to say, if you could capture the essence of maybe continuing to really seriously look at this, but keep in mind a number of people are very concerned about the impact on taxpayers, particularly when we've just had enormous approval of some other things. Would you want to phrase what you'd like us to show a preference on?
Yeah, I think I actually have what that is. I didn't hear anyone say, this is a horrible project, I don't ever want to see it again. So there's questions, there's concerns, there's timing issues. So we will work on some of those things. But with it being at least 2025 or out, I'm not going to move it forward, at least being 2025 or further out, we have time to work on those things. And so I hear what those concerns are, and it's my job and the staff's job to get you those answers till you are comfortable with whatever proposal finally makes it through. So we'll continue to work on that. Thank you.
I think that's acceptable, and we'll move to 2026.
Yeah. Liaison.
All righty. 2026. So we have project 110 for $730,000. This is to install solar panels at the government center. The engineering would be done in 2026 with the construction in 2027. I believe this would be a canopy style solar panel located over in the parking lot. If there's any questions, I will call upon Mr. Jim. None? Okay.
Yeah,
Supervisor Ramberg.
thank you. Regarding the, again, connecting the solar panels to the larger project, this is a separate set of solar panels, and would they be connected, or whatnot.
And it's kind of the same situation as the driveway, right? So these, if the project came in and when we get all the bids back and there's enough dollars in there to do the solar, we could do the solar then. If not, we know that we are going to do solar, and this is where the funds are. In the meantime, as part of the project, because we're tearing everything up on this side, we're going to put conduits down to where we know it's going, so we'll pre-pipe everything for the solar panels. And then when this project comes up, again, we'll have grants available. There's some really good stuff up the pipeline, so I think we'll be able to take full advantage of this then.
Supervisor Crowner.
This project also, did this include the battery system too, or was that just, so, and then can you just briefly explain how the canopy system works over the parking lot?
Sure. If you've ever been to Phoenix, you know what it is. It keeps your car cool in the summer, and it makes electricity. So it also helps with plowing. We don't have the big piles of snow underneath because the canopy will kind of keep everything a little bit cleaner. But we're looking at, one of the technologies is battery storage. So when the solar is running and we're producing a lot, right now the way that the utility and the way they deal with their customers, they don't buy back anything from us. We could give them all the extra, but we get nothing for it, which makes me not want to put a bunch of extra out there. The PSC is in the process of re-looking at everything that they do with the utility providers. So in the meantime, we'll look at the battery storage so that when these units are running full on, we're keeping that electric for use off times. So peak is where we'll save the money. The off-peak, if we could offload and run that off the batteries, then that's just a score all day. And to Ken's point, it keeps it off the operating expenses. So that's where our biggest limit is. And it'd be nice to have this just kind of go to close to zero as I can.
Seeing no other discussion, we can, oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Van Serman.
I think that's wise, Jim. I think it's wise that we put the battery back up into 26 and 27 because batteries is one area that's going to change dramatically between now and then. And it needs to because we're moving ahead and not knowing what we're going to do with spent batteries or how long these are going to last. But there's technology out there that looks very promising, and so farther in the distance makes more sense.
Yeah, and it's growing so fast, and it's amazing. It's like light speed.
Show of paddles.
Okay, we'll move on to Project 99 for $875,000, upgrade to Glen Hill Station, entrance station, flush restrooms and shower. So currently there, it's to replace the 1970s pit toilets, showers, and entrance station there. This would combine them all, if you want to keep them, you know. This would combine them all into one nice entrance with flush toilets and showers in one location. If there's any questions. No questions?
No
Okay.
questions.
All right. All right, moving on to 27. The first project, Project 118, this is for $360,000. This is to upgrade or install the fire sprinkler system HVAC at the developmentally disabled or medical examiners building over in New Richmond. Are there any questions on this project? It is. Okay, oh, we have a question? No? No? Okay. Were we all good on that one? Did everybody paddle raise on that one? Let's try and do that again, please. Okay. Okay, and then Project 119 for $300,000. This is to replace the hot water plant at the nursing home. This would, oh, yep, just that one. Sorry.
Any
Is there any
discussion?
questions on the hot water?
Supervisor Hanson.
Don't we just build that facility? do we use the,
Yesterday, I think.
I mean, come on.
This is pre-COVID. So yeah, it's there for 11 years. We did not replace everything in the building. So on the Orchard View side, that was not replaced. We did build a new nursing home. We have the geothermal there, but the other parts of the building, they all kind of need to be replaced. So this is from 16 to now, we're looking at what, 11 years? So
So that's one of those things we said, we can get to that later.
there you go.
So I
Kicked it
guess
down
it's-
the road. The
I
road's
gu-
coming.
I guess it's later. Okay,
Well, it will be. It's not yet. You got time.
all right.
Show of paddles?
I figured I'd just stay here.
I figure that's a good idea. Project 120 for 30,000. This is to install the grease trap at the nursing home.
It rates right up there with restrooms and doing toilets.
And show of paddles?
And the next project is the project 121 for 800,000 for the sprinkler system HVAC in Baldwin.
So with that one, the fire sprinkler system would be going through the whole building. It is not currently sprinkled. So, and of course, when you do that, the ceiling comes out. There's a whole lot of other work besides just putting in pipes, so that's what that's for. And again, we put it out there in 27. We're seeing costs just keep growing and growing, so this is an engineer's best guess about what it would cost.
Supervisor Van Sermer, and then Supervisor Hanson after that.
So it says a fire sprinkler system and the HVAC system, are they connected together, or what's the story on that?
So you've got the HVAC, you got the VAVs up in the ceiling. To put the piping in, you're gonna be moving some things around. It's not just a matter of just putting the pipes up and plugging it in. So there's a whole lot of things that have to move around. We did just upgrade the HVAC stuff in the building, so we don't have to buy new. We just have to deal with getting the sprinkler lines in.
I can see where it's good to have sprinklers to protect people, but that's a lot of money, and is it, are we gonna have savings in terms of insurance or property damage? What's the advantage of having sprinklers versus not having sprinklers? What makes this worth that much money?
I hate talking about having fires in buildings, just karma. But we just had one in a highway shop, right? Costs a lot of money. We have vehicles parked underneath this building. I don't know, it costs a lot of money. Do we save every day by having it? Probably not. But one time pays for itself, and you can't go backwards.
If we need a fire sprinkler system, why are we waiting so long then? Sounds like something we should do now.
Yeah, I'm with you. So when I bring something forward and it's like, bam, here it is, it's a little bit of I get pushback because I'm popping this on you all at once. So here it is, it's in a plan, it's out there a couple of years. If you wanted to move it forward, you certainly could. But after seeing what happened and hearing about the highway incident, I'd love to do it next year. But that's up to you guys.
Supervisor Burning and then Supervisor Counter.
So roofs, we have a $900,000 roof replacement coming up in '23. How much more life can we get out of that roof?
You're looking at it. We're fighting leaks all over the place with that roof.
Okay, you answered it.
And the DD building, just so you know, we're
Yeah.
replacing the roof on that. So that had a flat roof, and we had a really bad hailstorm. So the guy thought, well, I'll just get it spray foamed, and that'll buy. So it got spray foamed. Now it needs to come off. That adds all the costs.
Yep.
So, and the roofing is just astronomically expensive.
So I do ask all the department heads when they're going to bring a project forward that they should be able to project that out 5 years ago. So Jim should have thought of this 5 years ago, is really the point here. He didn't, though. He thought of it now. But if the county board thinks it's more important, it should be moved up, you have the ability to do that. You just have to tell me. We think this is more important than 27 project. We would like to see you move it up. I could see fitting it into 24 if you guys wanted to move it up. So I'll just throw that out there.
Well, maybe we have a couple of different questions here. Do you want to phrase them, Ken, or I think you're talking about the year we do it and whether we do it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess just generally, would you like to see it moved up from 27 to do it sewer, or leave it in 27? All right, and then overall for the project, you want to see the project done, I take it?
With engineering in 23.
Okay, I think we've come to the last item on our agenda.
Please.
Okay, well, Project 124 is for the jail expansion. This is for 30 million. We would go out to bond on this one. Due to the basic trends or the current trends that have been going on, we do anticipate the jail will need to be added onto in order to fit the capacity of the inmates. So this is what we would be proposing in 2027. Questions on the jail expansion?
Supervisor Hanson.
Wouldn't we save money bonding the 2025 bond at the same time? Just bond for the jail in 25 and hold the money until 27 when we're going to do construction?
We do have to spend the dollars within a certain amount of time when we go out to bond.
3 years, but
Yeah.
it'll be more than a year project.
Yeah. So I don't know if we'd have enough time in order to get all those dollars. Any other questions?
We can have a show of panels.
Okay.
That brings us to the conclusion of the substantive business portion of the meeting. I just want to thank Ken Witt, our Administrator, Leah Simonton, our Director of Finance, Ellen Denzer, of course, has spoken on from Community Development's perspective, Jim Ellsbury, our Facilities Director, and of course the Sheriff on their respective topics. Thank you for all your efforts in preparing for this meeting. I'm just going to ask if there's any other questions the members of the committee have for the Administrator or anybody else at this time, or we'll move into the next item on the agenda. Supervisor Ramberg.
Jim hit on a point about the hail in Baldwin. Were we ever able to get some insurance funds to fix any repairs from that?
We have an adjuster looking at that roof this week.
If there's no other comments, we'll move to future agenda items. Supervisor Connor.
Sorry, just want to move back on the one thing with the fire suppression down there. Is the fire suppression system up in the insulated part of the attic, or does that sit below between the ceiling tile and the rough ceiling? And then or if it is in the attic system, is that a wet system or a dry system?
Nope. I can give you answers to those, I just don't know if they'd be right.
Well, I can help you. It's on the east side. So the answer is yes and no. It will be, the way we're looking at it, it will be in the area that's below the rough ceiling and above the finished ceiling. That's hopeful. If it is up in the attic, then it would be a dry system. Yep. So now that we have some direction with when, we'll get those answers and do some scoping, so.
That's how I was going to answer it, too.
If there's nothing else, we'll move to future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items to request? Seeing none, we'll go to announcements and correspondence. Is there any correspondence for announcements? I'm just going to make one quick announcement. You've all noticed on the news we've had a lot of activity in public protection recently. And one of the big items that a previous committee of the whole approved was our command vehicle for the Sheriff's Department. Well, just in the last 6 weeks, it got a workout in Baldwin when there was a big apartment fire. Obviously, a couple days ago up at Apple River. It was very active and very necessary, as there was a very critical criminal incident that occurred up there. A number of people occupied the command center vehicle, a number of agencies were in the vehicle, and it really, really was very, very important from the sheriff's perspective. And next week, it'll be up in Somerset at a big music festival. So there's an example of a very costly item that we approved a couple of years ago, that I think one of our colleagues characterized it as an insurance policy when things really go bad. Well, in 6 weeks, we'll have used it 3 times on pretty bad incidents, not necessarily the music festival next week, but ensuring that we're there if something happens. So I simply say, if there's no other comment, we won't set the date for a future meeting until the future, and with that, we're adjourned, and the board meeting will occur in at 5 o'clock as scheduled. Thank you.